Good, good. I'm happy to be here. I feel like I'm bending over. Okay, awesome. So, thank you, Janeda, for such a lovely introduction. I'm happy to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm happy to be here. I was talking this morning with a few of you. I've been more in mommy mode in the last year, and I'm just happy to be able to get out more often, right? I'm a boy mom. Any other boy moms here? Yeah, so besides of what Janeda shared, I'm also a wife, a mom, a daughter, a friend. And I grew up here in Lancaster City in a home with 4 older siblings and my parents who are originally from Puerto Rico. If you could put the next slide, thank you. And so growing up, I remember always seeing my mom taking care of everybody. She was always cooking, cleaning, taking care of my siblings, helping with my nieces and nephews. I've been an aunt since I was 4, guys. So, so I'm the youngest of 4. And so I always saw my mom working. She also took care of her elderly parents. She took care of me. But I rarely saw my mom just have time where she just took care of herself, right? And I'm curious to know how many of you spend a lot of time taking care of responsibilities, deadlines, your business, your families, your team members, but sometimes you feel like you're doing it all at the cost of neglecting your own self. If you could raise your hands. Or if you used to. Yeah, okay, right? So if you could see, we're not alone, right? And I think that it's because a lot of times, like I was talking with Jenny this morning, as women, we are natural nurturers, right? We take care of things that nobody sees. When the toilet paper needs changed, does anybody else change it? It's us, right? If the counter has stuff on it, which I hate, I don't know, like I hate a dirty counter. But it's like we notice things that nobody else notices, right? And so it's easier for us as women to do more for others sometimes than we do for our own selves, right? We get up, we work, we do all the things, and that at the end of the night, we're like, what did I do for myself, right? And so it's easy to feel a lot of times that you're not allowed to take care of yourself, that you're not allowed to put yourself first. And a lot of times we only notice this after we're burned out or we end up sick, right? And so the truth is, though, that before we can lead and serve others, we have to lead ourselves. And so that's why today's topic, we're going to be talking about leading yourself first is the foundation of sustainable success. And so self-leadership is a topic that I absolutely love. It's an essential part about becoming a great leader. So whether you're leading at home, in your workplace, in your organization, in your business, when you lead yourself well, you gain the ability to manage your time, your mindset, your emotions, your habits, and your priorities in a way that aligns with your life and your leadership that you want to create. And then it's going to help you to give that impact that you want to make, right? And I see already there's so many amazing women here. I just love hearing how you guys speak about each other, how you guys show up for one another, right? And so when you lead yourself well, that's when you're able to show up better for everyone else. And so to start, I want to give you guys the opportunity to kind of have some self-awareness, right? And so before we dig into this topic of self-leadership, if you can pair up with the ladies next to you, 2, if there's 3, or if it's an odd number, that's okay, right? So what I would like for you to do is ask each other, and it's just quick answer, right? And ask one another and just really pay attention to what the other lady is saying, but also pay attention to what's coming up for you, right? Because this is going to help you as I get through this discussion to see where you're at and where maybe you need to strengthen some things so that you're able to lead yourself better. So the first question I want you to ask the other lady is, What is one thing that is currently draining your energy, peace, or focus? The second, I see something resonated already. That's good, that's good. The other question is, what do you believe would change if you led differently in that area? All right, so pair up real quick. And I'll give you a couple minutes. And if you didn't see, the questions are here. If you forgot what the questions are, they're right here.
You and I grew up in a time when we all had to work ethics. Oh, yeah. That's probably, you know what I mean? You know, it's like, yeah, when it comes, you work hard.
So you're really doing everything. I used to have assistants, and I got away with this as I trimmed out my business. So you probably might be doing the same thing.
Well, and it's funny, what I did some years ago is I work as a subcontractor for the company. And I farmed out to my brother, which is the computer work. I sent Stanley, my husband, out to do site visits when I couldn't. So I do have some support when I need it. I get paid for it. It's like, I don't want you to do me a favor here. You know, this is.
All right, you should be on the second question if you haven't been yet.
But it's like, right now, maybe it's just a function of you know, I just feel I'm not quite as adept and shifting.
I would say the same thing. You know what, there's another reason why we need to have coffee for breakfast, lunch, dinner, what's something, you know. Because we can share some of that, come up with a plan, if you will.
I think that's Let's look to early August.
Yes,
Yeah, so.
All right, if you haven't shared, it's your turn.
I don't know what directly changes for them. Do you know? It's life. I'm still working full time because my aim to gradually wean away from Berkshire Hathaway blown up last year.
And about 1 more minute for the second question.
Reorganize and either totally give it up because they wanted to be part-time so I can leave the company or take on a full-time position. So I'm still paying off the car. Once it's done, you know, it just eases our household. You know, I will pay for them.
Are you doing it remotely or?
No, I am in the office every day, so that's hiring on the second. But one thing I've learned is, you know, the amount of time that I waste on
All right, about 10 seconds.
you know, trying to figure out how to damn so, or when something approaches, one of the interesting things with the new iPhone, if you grab it this way,
All right, thank you so much, ladies. If I can get your attention. I'm happy to see that you guys were able to share. It seems like you needed that moment. Right? Good, good. So if I could just get your attention again. All right, awesome. So if you could put that next slide for me, please. So as you can see, the reason I give you that moment is because sometimes you don't have an opportunity to think because you're so busy, right? Or sometimes you have so much in your mind, but just letting it out, don't you just feel like a relief? right? And so self-leadership starts with self-awareness, right? Because if you don't know where you're at, how do you know where you're going or what you need to work on? And so I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in how you feel in the following. And you could write it in your notes on a piece of paper in front of you. So on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 that it's like on the more negative side, like you're low on energy, for example, or 10, you have a lot of energy. So in the area of energy, mental clarity, boundaries, confidence, rest, emotional resilience. And this is just for you to see where you currently are. So if you want to write each word and then right next to it, write on a scale of 10 where you feel like you're at.
You don't see what?
Nothing.
No, that's rest. That's rest.
Today is one of those days where you just want I would say rest and resilience are not strong.
Emotional resilience is the last one.
Mental clarity, hopefully we'll get rid of that.
Rest.
That's always work.
Drove straight here from the airport. Just about. You're at the really good part.
And when we talk about emotional resilience, it's more of like, are you like stressed? Are you like snapping at people? Are you, you know, when you're at that point, you're like, somebody's like, my kids like, Mom, what's for dinner? Like, I don't know, you know? That question drives me crazy. I don't know, but I fixed that. So I don't have that issue anymore, but it used to drive me wild. So, you know, emotional, like, do you get overwhelmed quickly, right? Which can happen if you're burned out and you're ready, like you have no more capacity. It could be the simplest question, like, I don't know, okay? Like, go ask somebody else, right? So as you reflect on where you're at in each of these areas, it allows you to see where you need to improve, not to condemn yourself, but to empower yourself. Because a lot of times people think that leadership is about managing others, right? But in reality, leadership begins with managing yourself correctly, regulating yourself, giving you the opportunity to rest, to reflect, and to just be. Because if your emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual reserves are empty, you might still be checking off boxes and you might be accomplishing tasks, but you're going to struggle to lead with wisdom, patience, creativity, and presence, which are all important. When we operate from depletion, we tend to react instead of respond. We tend to make decisions based on urgency instead of wisdom. We become impatient with the people that we care about the most, right? You might have had a stressful day at the office and you didn't flip out on anybody, but the point you get home, your husband tried to touch, don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Your kids want to spend time with you. No, right? And so that's why, again, it's so important that we're not operating from depletion and we're operating from a good reserve. The greatest leadership challenge isn't always external. It tends to be internal. This reflects one of the foundational ideas in the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth by John Maxwell. Personal growth is the foundation for everything else in your life. If you stop growing and caring for yourself, your leadership eventually reaches a ceiling. So imagine if you're trying to pour water from an empty pitcher. Imagine that. You would think I was crazy, right? I'm like, I'm pouring water out. And the pitcher is empty, right? So no matter how much people need from you, you cannot give from what you don't have. Leadership isn't about giving until you're empty. It's about leading from where you overflow. So by pouring into you, you're going to be able to give better to others. And I remember when I first started my entrepreneurial journey back in 2015, I was a wife and a mom to a 4-year-old and a 10-year-old boy. I worked part-time, and I would get out, pick up my son from daycare, run home to cook dinner, eat quick, then run to present meetings till about 9 p.m. And I also did a lot of networking. I was part of many groups like Lancaster Young Professionals, Latino Empowerment Program, like just so many different things that shared organizations that served our community. And I remember often feeling exhausted, anxious, and overwhelmed. And I remember my mom used to tell me, Becky, you're gonna end up sick. You need to slow down. You're doing too much. I was like, no, Mom, I'm good. I don't need to rest. I need to grind. And well, long and behold, my mama was right, because moms are always right at the end of the day, right? I ended up with severe depression, using alcohol to numb myself, and I ended up with walking pneumonia. I felt like I was gonna die. And looking back now, I realized that I was working from depletion and stress, and it took a toll on my health. And this is when I decided that I could no longer afford to keep giving from which I did not have. I didn't have to feel guilty for saying no. I didn't have to say yes to every opportunity that was presented before me. I didn't have to be at every single event that I was invited to. I had to learn to be still and take better care of myself. And it's one of the biggest lessons that I've learned. Until this day, my self-care is a non-negotiable. Like, you're not messing with my self-care time. And I know that many of you can probably relate to where I was. Either you've been there or you currently are there, where you're saying yes to things because you feel guilty for saying no. Constantly busy, running your business while caring for your family. Part of many things. And at the same time, you're feeling anxious and emotionally drained. So my question to you is to reflect. Where in your life are you leading from survival instead of wisdom? And if you could just take a moment and write one area down, write down one area where you know that you're operating from empty.
I say marketing. Marketing for me, because I spend so much time doing the work, and then I get feast or famine. So I do the work, and then I don't have work, so then I have to give it.
So there's no time to replenish that.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So, if you know me, like I just mentioned, from my experience of depletion, stress, and overwhelm, self-care is a non-negotiable, right? And what I've learned is that self-care is also self-leadership, right? And so it's easy to not do it. So it takes intentionality in order for you to make it happen. So that means that you choose to put your self-care time in your calendar before you put anything else. Before your calendar is too full to put yourself in there. It means that you're creating daily habits and routines that fill your cup and reflect what is important to you, what your values are, instead of simply reacting to whatever demands your attention. And so a few examples for you to reflect on if you're being intentional about your self-care and leadership, or you're being reactive. So when you're in a reactive mode in leadership, you live by notifications. Your notifications guide your life, whether it's social media notifications, your email, your text messages, your alerts from work or your business. saying yes too often. You're constantly feeling behind, feeling burned out. So those are a few ways for you to calibrate if you're walking in a reactive leadership. Intentional leadership and self-care is when you invest in personal growth every single day. You have boundaries. You protect your priorities. And you make decisions instead of simply responding to every demand. And so self-leadership and self-care means that you lead yourself in 5 different areas. Your mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and also your time. So I want you to think about these things. When it comes to your mental, ask yourself, what am I allowing into my mind? Not only what you're allowing into your mind through what you watch and what you listen to, but what thoughts are you letting ruminate in your mind that are not serving you? When it comes to your emotional, ask yourself, how am I responding instead of reacting? Reacting, we react out of emotion, right? But when we respond, we pause and we think through before we act or we say anything. Physical. Am I caring for the body that carries my purpose? You all have a great purpose. You all have a special gift. You all have a talent within you. It doesn't matter how young or how old you are. If you're living and you're breathing, you still have a purpose. And so how are you taking care of the body that carries that purpose? Spiritual. Am I staying connected to God and my values or whatever your belief systems are? Are you staying true to that? And when it comes to your time, does my calendar reflect what matters most to me? I often hear a lot of times people say, my family is important to me. Well, let me see your calendar, right? I had a mentor that once he shared that everything goes in his calendar, and he's very intentional. Like in his calendar, he has date nights with his wife, time that he has with his children, time that he has for himself, right? And so the way you can tell if something truly is important to you is if it's in your calendar, because what doesn't get written doesn't get done usually. So when I started to be more intentional about putting my self-care routine in my calendar, I started to practice my self-care more. And I just have a screenshot of what my calendar kind of looks like the time I'm getting up, what I'm doing. I don't know if you guys can read it. But when I get up in the morning, I don't look at my phone. Usually I'll put either worship music on or like meditation music. I'll put some warm lemon water with a pinch of salt because it helps to rehydrate your body. And then I'll go and sit outside in the sun or some kind of sunlight because it helps to calibrate your circadian rhythm so then you can sleep better at night. Then I'll do breath work. I'll breathe. I'll say positive meditations. I'll pray. And that's just to really center and ground myself. Recently, now in the summer, sometimes I'll take my shoes off and I'll stand in the grass to ground myself and just to be grateful. Think about the things that I'm grateful for. Because sometimes we don't realize that the things that we do are what set the tone for the rest of our day. If you get up and the first thing you're doing is checking your emails, checking your text messages, social media, that's the first thing you're putting, and then that's gonna mess up the rest of your day. Sometimes I would get on social media first thing in the morning and I would see a post that would just annoy me, and then I was annoyed for the rest of the day. Has that ever happened to you? Right? And so I'm being bothered the moment I'm woken up. Why would I want to start my day like that? And so by me doing these things, it has allowed me to be more creative, more at peace, more focused, more energized throughout my day, and I'm less reactive to my kids and my husband. I'm more present when I have client coaching calls. And I could just be me. I don't have to be stressed out. I don't have to be overwhelmed. I don't have to be anxious, because I don't like that. I like to be at peace. Anybody else like peace?
Vote for peace.
Yes. I like to be at peace. Anything or anyone that disturbs my peace, gotta go. And so this takes me to my next point, where the law of the leadership from the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership is the law of the lid. Your organization, your team cannot go any higher than what you are. We are the cap. So the more that you invest in yourself, the more you take care of yourself, the better your organization and your team is going to become. Your leadership can only rise to the level of your personal capacity. So self-care is not selfish. Hear me again. Self-care is not selfish. It's actually selfless, because the better you are, the better you get to serve. And it's one of the ways that we raise our leadership lid, so that we can serve from a place of strength instead of depletion. Because if your emotional health is low, your leadership ceiling is going to be lower. If your mindset improves, your leadership capacity is going to expand. And so that takes me to my next point, which is boundaries, right? Boundaries is a form of self-care and self-respect. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're guidelines that protect what matters most: your time, your energy, your peace, and your purpose. I like to assimilate it as like my neighbor. We have a fence. I don't have a brick wall, but it's a fence. They can clearly see onto my property, but they know where my property ends and begins. And we see this anywhere, right? There's boundaries everywhere. And it's to protect, not to keep out. And so there's different forms of boundaries, and we're going to go through them. Boundaries with yourself, boundaries with others, boundaries with technology, and boundaries with time. So the first one is boundaries with yourself, and this is one that people rarely think about. Sometimes we're the ones that are violating our own boundaries. Examples are staying up too late, scrolling on social media when you know you should be sleeping, or checking your emails and getting stressed out right before bed, which won't let you sleep, which then leads to insomnia, which then leads to you getting up late, which then leads you to be stressed out. And it just keeps going, right? Overworking, skipping meals, and like Jenny said, if you want your hormones to be regulated and you want to be well, you have to feed yourself well. So no skipping meals. Not exercising, right? Exercise gives you more energy and it helps to release stress. And overcommitting. Yeah, I'll be there. Oh yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll be there. And then next thing you know, you're just like frazzled and you're like, oh my God, like what did I just commit to, right? And so that's why having boundaries with yourself is so important. Self-leadership is keeping the promises that you make to yourself. So like if you said, I'm not gonna overcommit anymore, and then you keep doing it, then you're betraying your own self. So my question to you is, how many promises have you broken to yourself this month? And this affects, breaking promises to yourself affects your confidence, because it affects your trust, right? Because if you can't trust yourself, how can you trust other people? If you make a promise to yourself and you don't keep it, how are you going to be confident? It's because you don't trust yourself, because you didn't keep your word to yourself, right? A few examples is like, I'll start working out on Monday. I'm going to start eating lunch. I'm going to stop checking my email at night. I'm going to stop hanging out with that person that drains me so much and they drive me crazy because all they're always talking about is complaining and their problems, right? And I want you to think, if someone else treated you the way that you treat yourself, would you be okay with that? If someone treated your kids the way you treat yourself, or your best friend, would you be okay with that? And again, these are things for you to reflect, not to condemn yourself, but to just see what you need to work on and become better, because every day is an opportunity to become better. The other boundary that we have to have is with others. Healthy leaders don't say yes to everything. They say yes to the right things. Many women struggle with people pleasing, fear of disappointing others, feeling guilty for saying no, taking on responsibilities that really are not theirs. And the result from this is resentment, burnout, exhaustion, sickness, and less time for what matters most. A few examples that I can give you is saying, sure, I can do that, when you very well know you can't do that. You know that you have no more time in your schedule to say yes to anything else, right? So I'm gonna give you a few things. If you struggle with this, instead of saying, sure, I can do that, say, I'd love to help, but I don't have the capacity for that right now. See, that wasn't mean, right? Did that sound mean? No. Let me check my schedule first, right? Because you're going to be putting everything in your calendar, and you're making sure that your self-care is a non-negotiable. And if it's during your self-care time, you're not going to accept it. And another thing you can say is, I'm not able to commit to that. I'm sorry. Every yes that you say costs you something. You have to make sure that it's not costing you your own well-being. No, I'm sorry. You don't have to get that yet. So, boundaries with technology. This one is huge today. Technology is wonderful until it begins to lead us instead of us leading it. So, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but who here checks their phone first thing in the morning as soon as you wake up? Thank you for sharing. Right? Our phones are full of so many notifications, emails, doom scrolling, social comparison, feeling like we always must be available. Because if we're not available, the world's gonna fall apart. That's the story that we tell ourselves, right? Healthy technology boundaries that you can start applying is no phone while you're eating, whether it's lunch, dinner, whatever it might be. No work emails after a certain time. Social media time limits, because as a creator, you can get stuck looking for content. Next thing you know, you're going down a rabbit hole, right? So put a timer on, or maybe block a certain time where this is the only time that I'm allowed to be on social media. After that, I'm not allowed. Making sure that you're practicing your morning routine before you're checking messages and emails. And have 1 hour before bed where you're not going to be on social media. So technology should be a tool that you have. It's not something that steals your time or your mental energy. And then the last boundary is boundary with time. Time is our most valuable asset because it's the only thing that we cannot make more of. Money can be replaced, energy can be restored, and time cannot. A lot of time boundary violations include constant interruptions when you're trying to get things done, saying yes to everything, no calendar planning, and multitasking. A lot of times we think multitasking, oh yeah, I'm getting a lot done, but really it's like dividing 100 and you're doing so many different things. Really, you're only giving 20% instead of 100% to the things. And then it stresses you out even more. Healthy time boundaries include making time to rest, making time for your family, making time for exercise, making time for the time that you're going to be doing deep work, time to meditate and pray, and time for fun. You're allowed to have fun, right? Sometimes we get so wrapped, no, I'm busy, I gotta work. But fun is so restorative. One of my online mentors is Robin Sharma. And I want to be like him when I grow up because he takes like 3 months off in the summer. And he just has fun. He goes and visits museums, he travels the world. And what he says is that when he comes back, he has the best ideas. And I don't know if it's ever happened to you, like going on vacation and truly unplugging. When you come back, like, do you like have the best ideas ever? Right? And that just is proof that when you rest, you think that you have to grind all the time. But when you rest, you're the best. I just made that up now. if you want to write that down. When you rest, you are the best. So, if things are not scheduled, they're not going to get done. Right? So, again, does your calendar reflect what is important to you? And so, I want to give you an opportunity to reflect on some things. And you could just pick one sentence. You don't got to pick them all, right? But finish this statement, right? Where you think that maybe you need to work on. The first one is, one conversation I've been avoiding is, one thing I need to stop saying yes to is, one promise I need to keep to myself is, one technology habit I need to change is, and one negative thought I need to stop believing is. So just pick one of these sentences and write out your personal statement for a boundary that you need to create. So I want you to remember that every healthy boundary that you set is a vote for the life that you're trying to create. When you protect your time, your energy, your peace, and your purpose, you create the capacity to lead yourself well. And when you lead yourself well, you naturally lead others better. When you practice self-care and you set boundaries, it allows you to have a life that is full of more peace and purpose. And I'm curious to know, how many of you would like to have more peace in your life? If you could raise your hands. Awesome. Me too. So I have a handout here, which is called a Peace Protection Plan. If you could just take one and pass it. So it's a peace protection plan. And this is something that you're going to be able to take with you. Because again, if we're not intentional, things don't happen, right? I don't want you to leave from here inspired and, oh, that was some good tips, and not have something that you can actually reflect back on to remind you to lead yourself first so that you can lead others better. So there's a few statements here. To protect my peace, I will. To protect my time, I will stop. To increase my effectiveness, I will start. The boundary I need most is, and one promise I'll keep to myself this week is. And then you can sign and date it as a commitment to yourself. And you could either work on that now, or if you want to work on it at home, you're more than welcome to, because I don't want you to rush. Because when you're committing to something, this is something important, right? You don't want it to be another thing or another promise that you don't keep to yourself. I love that. So, if you would like to learn more about the 21 laws of leadership, which have been detrimental in my life, or to become a better leader, you could grab a copy of the book. I added a QR. Oh no, my QR code didn't show up. Why? I don't know what happened there, but I can send it to you if you want me to. Just tell me. You could grab a copy of the book. And I want to thank you ladies so much for allowing me to spend time with you today. And my hope is that you leave from here with more than just notes, that you leave with greater clarity, a renewed purpose, and one intentional step that you're going to take to become a better leader for your family, for your team, your community, and most importantly, for yourself. And as John Maxwell always says, growth doesn't just happen. It must be intentional. And every decision that you make to invest in your own growth, it creates a ripple effect that impacts everyone else around you. And as a certified Maxwell Leadership Coach, trainer, and speaker, I'm passionate about helping individuals, leaders, and organizations to develop mindsets, habits, and leadership skills